Hello everybody. There's a high likelihood that the clothes you're wearing today, wherever they are from, were made by a woman. Yet despite the vital role women play in the garment sector, we face a multitude of problems. These include a lack of voice, representation and leadership in the industry. They're paid less than men. They face discrimination, violence and harassment in the workplace, as well as a disproportionate burden of the unpaid care work in the home. On top of all this, COVID-19 has had an outsized impact on women in the garment sector. A new report entitled Moving the Needle, Gender Equality and Decent Work in Asia's Garment Sector has been produced by the International Labour Organization under the ILO Sweden Decent Work in Garment Sector Supply Chains for the Asia Pacific project. It takes a comprehensive look at the challenges facing women in the sector and outlines recommendations and strategies for action to overcome. With us today, we have the technical lead behind the report and two women leaders involved in the sector to discuss its findings. Joni Simpson is Senior Specialist, Gender Equality and Non-Discrimination from ILO's Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Eli Rosita Silaban, President of the Confederation of All Indonesian Trade Unions. And Tranti Lan An, Deputy Secretary General, Bureau for Employers Activities of the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Joni, let me turn to you first. Why is it necessary to move the needle on this subject? And how do you hope the report findings will be put to use?
Well, thanks, Steve, for that question. We commissioned this report in order to analyze the research that had already been put forth to reflect a more integrated approach to addressing gender equality across the sector and to reflect both the barriers and the challenges, as well as the emerging opportunities for stakeholders in the sector to take concerted and coordinated efforts. And much of what we see right now in relation to gender equality is really pre-existing issues that were there before the pandemic. And women's concentration in low-skilled, low-paid jobs and tasks, gender-based violence and harassment and discrimination, for example, gender pay gaps, and their insufficient voice representation, and the disproportionate share of unpaid care, all of these issues are emerging and being further exacerbated, not only in terms of women's ability to progress in their careers, but right now we're really seeing all of this threat to gender equality across the garment sector. The report comes at a timely moment. It's providing both the arguments as well as the practical areas to address in order to move the needle on gender equality forward in the sector.
Eli, let me turn to you now. You work very closely with female garment workers and have a lot of first-hand experience of the challenges they face. High amongst these are the low levels of representation and leadership by women at all levels of the sector. Why is it so important that women's voices are heard?
Their voices cannot reach anything, so we can speak up truly, deeply about what happened inside our heart. Also within our job surrounding, and also our right during maternity, during everything regarding to the woman. So it will be less when the woman cannot appear there.
What kind of issues does it help that women can bring up in the workplace?
Maternity issue, and also about the during feeding, or during miscarriage, or during menstruation leave, and also talking about the health issue, because it is totally different with the men. When I saw for a long time the men sitting with all the men negotiate about the collective bargaining agreement, but they always forgot about the woman right, woman issue. So if there is no woman there, how they can achieve something about their rights? That's I saw for a long time.
How can more women be supported to take leadership roles in the industry?
Fully understanding about the how to encourage those women take the lead, because sometimes when they are single, especially in Indonesia, they always have their freedom. But when they have married, suddenly their husband will stop. They join the union because always spend their time in the night and also in Saturday and Sunday. But at least we can show like myself as example. Not really 100%, not always 100% will stay in the organization, but you can also share your task with the men or also the women. But at least what I feel so far, I can really explain it with my mouth, and also the people will see it like what is the success the success story, and then they will say, look at Ellie, even though she has family, but she still can lead.
I'd like to turn to you now, Lan. One of the key barriers to women fulfilling their potential in the workplace is the burden they carry relating to unpaid care work and family responsibilities. What can employers in the garment sector do to better support workers in this regard?
The first is that to prioritize attention to the recognition, reductions, and redistributions of the disproportionate unpaid care work and responsibilities carried by women in the garment sector, in line with the Workers and Family Responsibility Conventions number 156, and also the Maternity Protection Conventions number 183. And also the employers can promote the education and public awareness to challenge and shift discriminatory social norms regarding the roles of women and men with respect to unpaid care work. And the third one is to encourage and promote the engagement of men in unpaid care work. All of these things, the employer should be very actively to work with the trade union. And besides that, the employers can develop the policies, strategies, and measures and investment to accessible and quality care service and decent work for the care workers, and using tripartite dialogue involving women workers at the workplace. And also the employers can expand and increase the collectively financed maternity rights and protections, and also other means in line with international labor standards. And the final, that the employers can link with the different innovative initiatives with the COVID-19 call to actions in the global garment industry and other efforts to expand social protection policy to cover the needs of women, especially those in informal and vulnerable situations during the COVID-19 pandemic.
It obviously costs employers money to provide childcare facilities, etc., for their staff. I mean, from an employer's perspective, are these good investments?
For the workforce in Vietnam, it's not easy to find the qualified workforce now, and they need to retain the workforce. And in order to retain the workforce, they want to give more benefits to the workers. So childcare is one of them.
Johnny, turning back to you now, change is constant in the global garment sector. And for workers and firms in Asia, technological advances and shifting consumer and customer habits are an ever-present consideration. How can workers, and particularly women workers, be part of shaping and benefiting these changes rather than suffering from their impact?
Well, women workers can be active agents for change in the sector, in particular when policies address their needs and when workplaces uphold decent working conditions. Women can and are demonstrating their ability to lead in terms of worker and employer organizations in the sector. We have Lan An and Ellie Sullivan here on the call. They are prominent women leaders in this sector. Women are leading enterprises operating in the RMG sector, and women workers are taking up higher responsibilities, for example, as supervisors. So the examples are there but they aren't a feature of all factories and all sectors across the region. So much more can be done and should be done to ensure that women can and do take up leadership roles. And this can be through policy measures that create a more gender responsive workplace. It can be by ensuring women can take up capacity development opportunities in this current time to upskill. Lifelong learning is an approach that the ILO promotes, and to be able to be ready for the next opportunities, we need to make sure that women are able to uptake these opportunities to be in higher skilled jobs, and then be ready for the promotions that may be down the road. One of the factors that we've seen out there is that women tend not to have an interesting career in the garment sector. While there are a lot of different tasks and levels of opportunities, women tend to be categorized in the lower skilled jobs and in a very narrow range of jobs and tasks, and they happen to be the low paid and the low skilled. So we'd like to see them taking on those more higher skilled, higher paying jobs, not only for their benefit, but also for the benefit of enterprises. Because when we have this diversity, when we have a more balanced workforce on all levels, we know that that leads to better decision making, it leads to better innovation at the company level.
And how would having more women in positions of responsibility benefit any garment company?
We can even see in the examples of the factory level committees that are emerging that when there are women and men on these committees, women will have different observations through their experiences at the factory level, as well as just being women. They will come with perspectives that bring in a different view, and therefore they will raise issues that might commonly be overlooked, and in particular the gender dimension. So talking about maternity protection, about where the washrooms are located, all different issues, the childcare challenge. These are gendered issues, and they need to have solutions that take up the needs as well as the perspectives of women. So those happen at the factory level in the committees where we see social dialogue in practice, workers discussing with employers such key issues. This can be as a supervisor raising issues in your managerial position, because you have the opportunity to be tapping into the knowledge of the female workforce that you're supervising and bringing those issues forward. There are multiple ways of taking advantage of these solutions.
Lannan, as Joni just pointed out, many women in the garment sector are stuck in lower paid, lower skilled positions. What steps can be taken within the industry to help women move up the skills ladder and help them take on positions of higher pay and more responsibility?
And I agree with Johnny that women, female workers in the garment sector got stuck with low skills because at the beginning they were recruited when they have no skills, and after a few weeks of training they got a job. So in order to provide the upskilling for the female workers in the garment sectors, it is very big questions. It can be involved not only the employers, but also of the bigger policy from the government, and also the involvement of the trade unions. Because female also need to be retrained and also have provided with other skills like soft skills and also technical skills that they can change to another job when they want to, when they need to.
Ellie, the garment industry, as does every other industry, faces challenges regarding violence and harassment in the workplace. What needs to change?
The understanding of a woman, what is the violence and harassment, it's totally wrong for a long time. They only understand that the violence is if there's rape or they touch your body. But they never understand that shouting, screaming to them directly from their supervisor or from management or from other people. It is not violence or harassment for them.
So there needs to be more awareness about what constitutes violence and harassment. What else can be done?
It is like many challenges like regulation and also law. It will be put on the law and or regulation about your right, my right, but not really implementing, not really translate into the field. So people only see that like some requirement, but not to obey. But for me, if something say, Eric, how can you see this, the industry and also the violence? That is because there is no room for the woman to speak up. And also our culture always bully like me. When I say someone harass me in my working place and suddenly my friend will say, yes, because you using not properly clothes, because you see like what's that, this another woman. There is no voice for me to keep me safe, also to support me to bring this case, and then make us not really want to explain everything what happened with me inside the company. So in Indonesia especially, because our culture always say that the woman not really can explain because the man has right about it, but now already changed slowly and little bit. But I see some women also already can bring their case to the police, also can explain their problem inside the factory to their union. The difficulty is because too many workers are not join union, so they confuse to bring their problem when they facing such violence inside the factory. Will bring to the management will dismiss them. Will bring to the people will bully them. Will bring to the police will ask how you can explain how the first time they teach you, maybe you come too close and then blame them again. So that is make them confused. But at least the important they join union, it is also as a key. And then because the union was always teach them how to speak up and also how to defend their rights, and also how they can open their mouth if they see like violence and harassment.
And let's talk about money now. The report shows that female garment workers are generally paid less than their male counterparts. Why is this? What needs to be done?
From the report, we can see that the first important factor in gender pay gap is the undervaluation of women's work in female workforce intensive occupations and enterprises, such as those in the global garment sectors. And also we can see that in the garment sector, the concentration of women at very low, at very ends of the global supply chains, where the competitive is a very big pressure for the women, and that contributes to the gender pay gap in industries like textile and garments. In order to close the pay gap, the employer should prioritize the attention to the to comply with the national law and international labor standards that's mentioned in the Convention 100 and the SDG 8.5. And also at the workplace, and also together with the trade union and the government, employers should strengthen and monitor and enforce the national policies and laws on equal pay for work of equal value, and as well as minimum wage levels in line with international commitments and guidance from international labor standards. And in addition, the employer should ensure that the female workers at the workplace can represent and have leadership role, to initiatives and social dialogue to protect their rights and protect the and also protect the equality in pay and also the minimum wage levels. And finally, at the company and employer levels should review and adjust hiring and promotion policies to make sure that the wage and salary system is identified and compliant.
Johnny, let me turn again to you. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know, has hit businesses and workers incredibly hard around the world. For women garment workers in this region, what's the impact been?
The impact has been detrimental. We see that women have been losing jobs more often than men. And because they're in the low skill, low paid jobs, these are the first to go. And with all of the disruptions in the garment sector, and with it being disproportionately female dominant, this means women are being affected in a higher level. And what else is happening, and which is very worrisome, is that it will be harder for women to get back to the labor force. And this has been documented in previous crises. We've already mentioned unpaid care responsibilities disproportionately falling on women. This is one of the reasons. A lot of the women coming to the garment sector have gone back to their villages when the measures took place and when lockdowns came. So having them to be able to get back to the workforce and to be able to be there to take up the jobs as they reemerge is going to be a challenge if there is not dedicated actions to make sure that those pathways are there. And I think Lan An mentioned the element of supporting women to get back to the workforce along different life cycle challenges. The same is true for this crisis. We need dedicated actions to make sure that women are able to get back. And that can be in supporting their unpaid care burdens, making sure that they are aware of the opportunities emerging. Companies may put in place specific measures to outreach to women workers and facilitate their access. There's much that can be done. And a lot of those measures are already in the report because we did take into account the COVID situation. And there's more that can be done by discussing that at the company level between worker and employers to come through with the solutions in the country context that will work to make sure that women are able to get back to these to the jobs as they come back.
Ellie, would you like to share any final thoughts on how gender equality in this in the garment sector in this region can be moved forward?
I just want to see many women take the lead. Don't be afraid. Just show your capacity, show your capability. You can speak and read many things, not only the workers issue, but everything the issue in the world, and also try to listening their other problem. Also good dialogue, good communication, transparency, partnership, collaboration. Also very important thing right now during pandemic and also how to the recovery, because workers or trade union cannot isolate themselves if they don't like about the policy inside the company, but how they can solve the problem with collaboration and also the dialogue. I think that is important thing.
Lan An, I have a similar question for you. If an employer wants to do more to ensure gender equality in their factory, what would you tell them?
First of all, I'd like to congratulate them with the right decision, because it's very good for the factory. And you may know that many factories already have policies and programs in place to promote equal opportunity and decent work. And recognizing that improved working conditions, gender equality, and productivity that contributes to the industry's sustainability. And in this world today, to remain competitive in this changing environment, factories must find ways to adapt their policies and practices and culture to the changing the workforce. And for many factories, the journey towards gender equality is a long way and a continuous process. So my advice to the factory is that the factory should go through the following steps. They should clarify the objectives of why they need the gender equality. And also they have to prepare the journey catalyst for this plan and establish the factories policies for gender equality. And finally is to design a strategy and implement the plans. So there are many and several initiatives that have been made for to close the gap of gender equality. But however, the result should be further enhanced through the strengthened partnerships, accountability, and collective action.
Joni, a last word from you. What will it truly take to move the industry?
What we see through the report is that there are a lot of good initiatives and policies out there. There's lots of good work, and but what also we see is that ad hoc interventions rarely lead to sustainable and transformative change. And the status quo certainly won't lead to that change either. So I wanted to focus on one of the P's within the report, which is on progress, how to make progress on moving the needle on gender equality. And we can sum it up with being intentional. Each of us has a sphere of influence, a responsibility, an ability to do our part to ensure that women don't fall further behind during the COVID crisis and beyond. And by pulling our efforts together through partnerships, by exchanging information on good practices, there are so many ways outlined and highlighted in this report. By taking dedicated actions with measurable results, as Lan An was mentioning. It's up to us all to take bold and decisive actions towards gender equality if we want to see the needle move ahead.
That brings to an end this special video. Please allow me to thank our three panelists for being with us. If you'd like to download the report, the link should be appearing on the screen beneath me now or in the description beneath the video. If you go to that link, you'll also find other materials related to the report, including translations of the key findings into a number of languages from the Asian region. If you'd like any more information or any follow-up on any of the issues we've discussed, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. That brings to an end our special presentation. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.